inspiration, lessons learned, and passionate ideas. Every opinion expressed here is strictly that of the person who gives it. Let us consciously and lovingly agree to disagree if it does not resonate with us. Our topic for today is Earth Equilibrium, and our speaker is Dave Munson, and I'm going to read a bio for Dave before he comes up. Dave Munson has experienced a wide range of careers in his lifetime. As an environmental chemist, he coordinated the cleanup of toxic materials in 15 states across America over a 20-year span. As a spiritualist, he is the author of a recently published book, Wandering with Nathaniel, His Guardian Angel. In between, he led more than 8 fundraising campaigns for United Way, started Girls Go Science and the Design and Build Challenge at the Great Lakes Science Center, and was the project Lead the Way engineering teacher in Arizona, and the executive director of Northeast Ohio nonprofit assisting high school students with career and college choices. His science, teaching, leadership, and spiritual experiences allow him a unique perspective to speak about our chemical, physical, spiritual equilibrium with our Mother Earth. He and his wife, Diane, are members of the Church of the Angels, and he presently serves as the board treasurer. And he does a lot for us. So if you want to join us, Dave.
Hi, good morning. Let me adjust this. I think I'm slightly taller than Fran. Is that good? Okay. First of all, I want to thank Michelle Jones and Alan Ziga for shifting their speaking engagements, which allowed me to talk the day before Earth Day, which you'll see in a moment why I really am attracted to doing that. The first thing I want to talk about is perspective and perception. And I won't do this much today, really, but I need to read the definition that came to me, and I wrote in my book, Wandering with Nathaniel. And it'll be clear why I'm reading this in a second. The accumulation of your life experiences, emotional growth and spiritual growth, creates the basis for your perspective, your point of view, toward any event or circumstance at any moment in time. Your intellectual thoughts, observations, or interpretation about a specific moment or in time or event is your perception. Today, I'm up here. I need to let you know what my perspective is. Hi, Zoom participants, by the way. My perspective creates my perceptions throughout my lifetime. And today's talk comes from many different lifetimes with similar threads. Observing and interpreting Earth's cycles as a Mayan sky watcher at Chichen Itza. Protecting and honoring Mother Earth's resources as a Native American. Struggling to sow and reap Earth's bounty as a farmer near St. Joseph, Missouri, with my wife in a different lifetime. Cleaning and detoxing the earth as an environmental analytical chemist in this lifetime. And recognizing and connecting with the energies of Mother Earth as a spiritualist here today. My topic is Earth Equilibrium, and everyone knows Earth, but let me define equilibrium. It's a static balance between competing chemical, physical, and or emotional forces. And when a new factor or force is applied, the balance shifts until a new equilibrium is established. Now, with my background, my equilibrium, I always think chemical equilibrium. But as I get older, the physical equilibrium is important, and certainly reconnecting with the Church of Angels, spiritual equilibrium is the most important thing in my life. As I talk today, I'm going to talk about some big picture equilibrium things on Earth, things that, you know what, we don't have to worry about. They're just kind of interesting for me to stand up here and mention. But then we're going to get into some more of the woods, so to speak, as we go along. Macro equilibrium. I don't even know if that's a term or not. I just made it up as I was writing this talk. Macro events not to worry about that are interesting. Something like this, something immediate that occurred. The magnetic poles of Earth, north-south, have switched over 150 times in geologic history. Now, in our lifetimes, not so much. It is way overdue, by the way, because typically it occurs every 300,000 years, and it's been almost 800,000 years since the pole switched. And how do scientists know that? Anyone? How do they know that?
The rocks.
Thank you, Ernie. In the rocks, the iron in the rocks shift which direction they're pointing, and the layers there, all of a sudden there's this instantaneous shift in the magnetic field of the Earth. Obviously, the flora, plants and animals, trees, and fauna, animals, humans, have to adjust to their own new equilibrium when catastrophic, so to speak, change occurs. More than 70 meteorites hit Earth during the short period known as Noah's flood. Now we can sit here and have a whole talk about, Noah and the flood and 2 by 2 and all that. But the fact of the matter is, it's easy for scientists and geologists to see that there were more than 70 major meteorites in that short period of time. No wonder there was water splashing all over the place in 40 days and 40 nights of rain. And of course, there's stories about that. Many of the ancient stories are true things. Ancient civilizations, this is very interesting, have stories where they've told for generations and generations. The sun stopped in the middle of the day and then reversed course. Ancient verbal stories. And the most interesting part is that on the opposite side of the world, there are civilizations that talk about the long night. The long night when the sun rose in the east instead of in the west, which had been doing for generations. So the Earth stopped rotating and went the other way. A new equilibrium was established after that, one that we kind of live with right now. Gradual things, the Shenandoah Mountains, the rolling beauty of the Shenandoahs, they were at one time higher than the Rocky Mountains. But that's a gradual change. We don't even see that in our lifetime. Shallow ocean fossils can easily be found in the high deserts of Arizona. It was an ocean, not a desert. Chesterland, 5,000 feet of ice was above us at one time. So there are gradual changes, there are instantaneous changes. All of that, the Earth always finds a new equilibrium in a new timeline. It's the flora and fauna that have trouble finding what that new equilibrium is. And those are all natural. Those are natural occurrences. And I said, I don't lose any sleep over any of those things. Let's talk about a micro level. Last week, Kelly discussed the balance between dark and light in our own personal growth. And we can only restore the natural equilibrium if we recognize the darkness, the shadow self, and say, okay, we recognize you, and understand that that is the balance to understanding our light and our higher selves and higher vibration. What I'm going to be talking about is our collective consciousness. Individually, we find our own equilibrium with the Earth, chemically, physically, spiritually, energetically. But there's a collective consciousness, and that's what I want to talk about next, is we can make an impact on that. As we move into a higher vibrational earth, we're in the middle of an ascension, by the way. The earth is vibrating at a higher vibrational level, and it's going to be more spiritual and loving, and all the yucky chaos will go away. Wouldn't that be great? Yes, absolutely. It's called the ascension. And we'll still be in physical beings and stuff. One of my heroes in this lifetime is Rachel Carson. And as I was writing this, as I was writing my book, I was writing this talk, and earlier this morning I invited her to join us here. I'd be honored if she did. She wrote Silent Spring in 1962. I read it 10 years later as a 15-year-old. One of the parts of her book were about pesticides, DDT specifically, impacting eagles' eggs, and the eagles were becoming endangered and no one knew why. And some really good scientists figured it out. Rachel Carson, being a biologist, wrote about it. That was her bravery, because she lived most of her life after that as a hermit because of the pressure from the industrial complex that controls a lot of yucky stuff. Less than 20 years earlier than that, when she wrote about DDT impacting eagles' eggs, DDT was touted as a miracle cure. And you can go and Google this. The pictures are unbelievable. But big tanker trucks would drive down the street in New York City and spray it on kids playing and in pools of kids playing because it theoretically prevented polio. They were so fear-based about it. And the science was so messy, it's even messier today, that they sprayed a poison toxic on our children. No wonder humans who were built to live 150 or more years only live to 75. Because we've been doing it to ourselves. Since I have time, I'm going to honor Rachel Carson by reading a poem from my book, Rachel's Ripple in Time. This green one. Okay, Rachel's Ripple in Time. I wrote this in 2021. Across time and space, a person creates a ripple, a shift in the course of humanity, impacting choices to be born upon this earth, impacting decisions on when to leave. Unknown to many that Rachel said, but man is a part of nature. And his war against nature is inevitably a war against himself. I propose this ripple, but man is a part of the one. And his war against oneness is inevitably a war against himself. So that's my poem honoring Rachel. I could talk for hours about man's mismanagement and damage to the earth. So my career, I traveled. Most of it I can't talk about. So it's under contract. But I know what I did. I cleaned up a lot of bad stuff and saw the underbelly of the Industrial Revolution in streams and groundwater and drinking water and in factories and in people. I'm only going to point out a few things today, not to create fear, not to create anger, not to create guilt, but to create in each of you a focused, discretionary urgency. Discretion on what we as humanity really need to be praying about. There's a lot of stuff out there. Look over here, don't look there, because we don't want you to see the underbelly of what's occurring, which a lot of people view as progress. Couple historical, I call them unnatural equilibrium shifts. Chlorofluorocarbons. Now, I promise, okay, as a chemist, I'm not going to get into too much chemistry here, although I could, but I'm not. Chlorofluorocarbons, anybody know what those are? David? Oh, what were they used for? Do you remember? Okay, they're a very stable molecule used in aerosols, hairspray, deodorant. We all grew up, most of us, yeah, with underarm deodorant and all that. And they used it because it was such a stable molecule. But the fact of the matter is, chlorine and fluorine in certain states are the most reactive compounds on Earth. And by the time they get up to the top of the atmosphere, because they're so stable, they just get up there over time, the sun energy gamma rays hit it. And those chlorine and fluorine atoms bounce out of that molecule and they start to react with the ozone layer. The ozone layer is a natural part of the Earth's equilibrium. It's a very thin layer that's there to protect us from high energy sun gamma rays and such. Without it, we would be living underground and we'd have gray skin and big eyes. But we were able to live on the surface and enjoy the sunshine because of the ozone layer. But luckily back then, there were scientists who had half a brain and they came out and said, we have an issue. The ozone layer is going away. And that's because of a man-made chemical, not natural. You can't go out and find chlorofluorocarbons in nature. Luckily, our lawmakers listened to that good group of scientists and did something about it and made chlorofluorocarbons obsolete. And our ozone layer, we found a new equilibrium and it's good right now. This year's Earth Day theme is plastics versus the planet, or planet versus plastics. I don't know. That is the theme. I'm going to talk about that for a second. Everyone's really familiar with plasticizers, I think. They're called phthalates, but they're the thing that make plastics really flexible. Plastics were invented in 1920, a little earlier, but 1920 they figured out how to really make plastic, and then a little later put plasticizers in it and do all these fancy things that made progress for us. Right now, there's a microplastics blob floating between California and Hawaii. It is 3 times the size of France, floating in the Pacific Ocean. Natural? No. It's unnatural. It's caused by humans. And in the United States, we have American guilt about this. Oh, we can't use plastic bags at the grocery store, or all this whole thing about plastics as if it's America's fault. And sustainability is a good thing. It's a good thing, but guilt over it is something different. Okay, and I see you nodding your head, John. Okay, he's part of the sustainability effort at Cleveland Clinic. We just met a couple minutes ago. Yeah, so thank you for being here today. And interesting data from 2022. The USA dumps about 2,000 tons of plastic into the oceans each year. That sounds like a lot. Egypt, 3,000. Mexico, 4,000 tons. Thailand, 25,000 tons. Brazil, 42,000 tons. Indonesia, 59,000 tons. China, 78,000 tons. India, 140,000 tons. That's 50 times the amount from the United States. This is not an American issue. This is a global issue. Plastics. We only put less than 1% into the oceans, but it's sitting off the coast of California. And that plastic is preventing certain other chemical things that I'm going to talk about later. It's causing an equilibrium imbalance between carbon dioxide and the oceans. Plus the phthalates, which are the plasticizers, which aren't really good for us, are now in fish and sea life and floating in the ocean. The one last thing, I forgot to put my timer on. Am I okay? Okay, thank you. Electromagnetic frequencies. Again, I could have a whole talk about electromagnetic frequency pollution. It's something that we don't see, though. Maybe something we feel. Every time I drive under high tension wires on the road, my arms just, the hair on my arms just stand up because it's so chaotic to me to deal with that. I use I have an EMF cover for my phone to prevent personal exposure. But you know what? There's 5G out there, there's microwaves, there's radio stations, there's everything shooting. We live in a sea of electromagnetic frequencies. We just don't see it. And a lot of it's natural. And humans evolved. Flora and fauna evolved in a natural state of electromagnetic frequencies that exist. Like, the Earth, North and South Pole from the sun. You know, everyone's seen the ley lines of electromagnetic frequencies on the Earth. If you like that, Sedona has great vortexes. If you ever want to hike some of them, the electromagnetic frequencies there create a very thin veil between here and the hereafter. It's I've had some great experiences there, including my wedding with Diane. Anyway, whales. A lot of animals navigate based on the electromagnetic frequencies that are around the Earth. That's how eagles find their home. That's how whales migrate to their feeding areas, to where they have babies, to where, through the ocean currents and things. I don't know if you noticed, but recently there's been a rash of whales and things beaching themselves. Well, there are huge lines. It's a big competition worldwide. Who can build the biggest internet lines and lay them along the ocean floor? From here to London, from New York to London, the financial capitals of the world, and here and there in China to wherever. And ocean floor has a lot of these cables on it. And then we added wind farms off of New Jersey. Well, how do you think that electricity of that spinning wind farm out in the ocean gets to the land? There's huge wires laying on the ocean floor. And you know, wires, when electricity passes through it, creates an electromagnetic field. That's just how electricity works. Right, NASA engineer? He's like, yeah. So whales navigate based on electromagnetic frequency of the natural Earth. They're in an equilibrium with the Earth. And all of a sudden, we put this wall of unnatural electromagnetic frequency right in the ocean. It's like those stories you hear about the people who used to, in the early days of Google Map and things like that, and their car, they'd be driving along, following it, and all of a sudden they'd turn onto a railroad track and a train would come and smash them. Or they drive down a dirt road and go off a cliff because, I was just listening to my Google Map. And some of those things really did happen. But so here are whales. And they hit this unnatural electromagnetic frequency caused by us, theoretically, to help with green energy. And we're killing the whales. They beach themselves. You'll see the stories. 2022 New Zealand, 500 whales beached themselves. And the reason was blamed on the gently sloping beaches confused the whales. Like, whales haven't had gently sloping beaches for millennia. In 2023 in New Jersey, 424 humpback whales beached themselves. It's blamed on changing ocean currents. Like, whales aren't adept at changing ocean currents? Of course they are. there's a big electromagnetic line man-made under the ocean there. I even read an article that was blamed on COVID. Whales beached themselves because of COVID. Well, were they not 6 feet apart? I don't get it. So this is where our discretionary intelligence needs to come in when we're looking at these things. Who's protecting what? It's our job to protect Mother Earth. Couple last things here. Natural equilibrium shifts not to worry about. Carbon dioxide. The Earth wobbles like a top. You ever see a kid's top and it'll go slice, then it goes, then it finds its equilibrium, then it goes wobbles. Well, plus the Earth's orbit around the sun wobbles too. Plus the Earth wobbles. Plus the orbit is elliptical. Plus the sun goes in cycles of hotter and colder, hotter and colder, hotter and colder. Plus, in the time I did this talk, we have zipped 1 million miles through the Milky Way. Carbon dioxide is something that's in natural equilibrium with the Earth. I studied it as an environmental chemist, Syracuse. Carbon dioxide absorbs into the oceans release it gets absorbed in the ocean, it creates calcium carbonate. And you know what that is? Shellfish, shells, ocean reefs, plants and animals. We release carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen. Plants, we're in equilibrium with Mother Earth and plants. They use carbon dioxide. And there's science out there that says the Earth warms and there's going to be more carbon dioxide and the Earth is going to warm. Well, it's the chicken and the egg. The Earth's warmed before. We've had higher levels of carbon dioxide and lower. But what came first? Because as the Earth warms, plants get bigger. This area used to be a rainforest. Bigger plants, more carbon dioxide, warmer Earth. Part of the natural equilibrium. So as an environmental chemist and all these lifetimes studying the Earth and cycles, it makes me, I don't know what it makes me. I can't say angry because I don't get angry too much like that, but it makes me sad. It makes me sad for the people that don't understand that carbon dioxide is not our issue here at Earth. It's an illusion. Our issues are plastics, EMF, and a whole other host of things that I don't have time to talk about. Now I'm going to get to the good part here and end up. Our body is comprised of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon, calcium, phosphorus, 99% of our body. Those are all Earth elements. We are the Earth. That's why these elements are unnaturally occurring. The Earth's made up of 71% water. Guess what our brain's made up of? 73% water. Our heart, 73% water. We are the personification of Mother Earth, energetically, chemically. That's why grounding, you hear a lot more about grounding these days. And that's why it's so wonderful for people to ground and get their hands in the soil. We're literally the same elements as Earth. So every day for us is Earth Day. Every day. Grounding, connecting, growing food, planting trees. And that was the other thing I wanted to say also about our equilibrium with plants and humans. It's not that we need less humans. I'm not even going to get into why people say that. We need more trees. We're cutting down rainforests at this huge rate. And I said, well, there's too many humans on Earth. No, there's too few trees. Thank you very much. So that's something that we can all do individually to help out. And that's in using natural remedies, bringing in the energies that connect humanity with the beneficial equilibrium with Mother Earth Generations and generations of people did that. 100 years ago, it kind of shifted. We won't go into all that history, but it did. That is what I want you to remember, that individually we can restore that, and collectively, our collective consciousness can help restore Earth. Here's my final prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for restoring balance and protecting Earth's natural ability to maintain equilibrium. Thank you for healing intentional and unintentional impacts of human activities on Mother Earth. Thank you for helping us all to remember our ancient knowledge that Mother Earth provides all. Thank you for blessing each of us with the opportunity to discover and embrace our own equilibrium with Mother Earth. And so it is. Thank you.
Stay here. I'm sure there's some questions. And before we start with questions, I want to thank you for taking this extremely complicated topic that John can understand, but Fran can't, and making it so that I could understand it. I really appreciate that, because I know you probably could have talked. I'm sure the three of you together would have a much different conversation than what we heard. So thank you for that. Does anybody else have questions for Dave?
Andrea?
It's wonderful, love it.
Thank you.
And I think, and I love prayer. Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up, because I love the chapter in my book, I love your garbage and what that energy does. But one thing to remember is that not everything's going to affect you. There's so much more in vibrational sense that is an answer to that prayer, that some people will come in with the knowledge of how to connect those molecules of plastic now, to where it will evolve too. So it's not, and I didn't feel that presented it as mistake by any means, but it is where, there's stuff floating in the ocean, there's stuff floating in the ocean, right? You can't deny it. But somebody will come along and find those molecules, the solution to those, how to break that stuff down. And I don't know when, I hope it's soon.
Our collective consciousness.
But the prayers are
Bring that
going to
into-
right. So, but the prayer is going to be answered. There will be, there was a time for plastics, but then there's a time to recycle, work out. And yeah, there's recycling, but there's also going to be somehow new molecules coming through that will balance out.
Vegetable-based plastics, soy-based plastics, hemp. There are a lot of materials that are used, but there's a lot of petrochemical pressure. There's a lot of petrochemical pressure from those industries not to go down that route, but there are natural things that got lost over the last 100 years that we just need to bring back forward. So thank you for that, Andrea. David?
When I was in grad school, one of my associates on bacteria that break down plastic. I've read in the last 50 years that somebody has done that. So it's out.
Yeah, and that absolutely, and that's why they're microplastics. They're not bottles of Pepsi and Coke floating in the ocean. It's not that. It's little tiny particles of plastic that have been broken down naturally by natural bacteria, and hopefully it can get to the last stage. The interesting thing is that scientists went out to study this thing, and they found that 70% of the pieces of plastic that they could actually read things on had Chinese writing on them. Carrie?
The empath and the feels talk, and the so what's the step? What can little Carrie, this little speck on the earth, what can I do? And it's so clear that the first step for each and every one of us, and I mean, for me, so it was like, for me, what can I do? And I was like, well, it's not just me, but what we can all do is what we are doing, which is being here and discovering and working on our own equilibrium. And that's how the light grows. And like to focus on what I can do rather than what I can't do. Like I know my limitations, right? I know I'm not gonna go invent something that's not mine, that's not for me. But what I can do is I can work on myself and I can grow my life and that helps the whole.
Yes, thank you. And that was a part of what Rachel's Ripple in Time poem says, that that's all each of us need to do. And then the collective consciousness will guide humanity in that direction. And those people like Andrew talked about will appear, and what David said about scientists and stuff that want to do good and aren't there for profit and power.
Those scientists, the light will help bring them forward instead of the darkness.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, there's a lot you can do. Carol?
Well, I know we mentioned it last week too, but you mentioned the grounding and the earthing and grounding. Well, the earth gives you that energy for healing. To go outside, take your shoes off and stand on the ground or lay down on the ground, healing the body.
Yeah, that's just something I've discovered on really Edmund and Carrie's hikes and stuff. Yeah, I'm working on that because my brain can get so chaotic that it's hard to find that peace, and I can find it out in the woods and stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, would you remind me of your name?
Sure. I've never been here before. My name is Mary Alex.
Oh, Mary Alex. Thank you.
Welcome.
Excellent. I really enjoyed the talk. In case this is helpful to anyone, I did read a book recently called Fatal Conveniences. And it does go through each thing that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. And the thing I like about this book is that the end of each chapter is what can I do? And it's sort of like those little things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to help make things cleaner for your own personal life.
Thank you for sharing. And for our Zoom participants, the book that she's referencing is called Fatal Conveniences, which would be
It has a doomsday title, but it actually gives you things you can do.
that's very good. Yes, to help heal Mother Earth. Very nice. Kathy.
Want to apologize to when you're talking. The other key in coming up with saying analysis, we have to be aware, like when we do something, we have to be aware of what, and not again, you go like, but we have to be aware when we're going around the who use this again, or it's a trash. You know, it's just, you know, I keep hearing these people debunking the recycling movement saying that it's all just going in the ocean. And I hope that's not true.
Oh, that's not true.
Okay, I've tried to research.
Yeah, no, there is recycling going on.
And have been able to found some. But we have to be aware of everything, our actions. They do that.
Yeah, and it has to be smart because recycling glass was big for a long time. But you know what glass is made out of? Sand. There's not a shortage of sand on the earth. And matter of fact, it took more energy to recycle glass than it does to make glass from new. So glass recycling is not exactly energy-wise the best thing, but plastics, on the other hand, I totally agree with. Okay, John.
Thanks for sharing. That was a great talk.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
This stuff is really complicated. It's good and simple. So that was really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. This is John's first time here too. Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
You know, I agree. It's a journey. And it's parallel. I really try to help our own.
They are.
All you do our job transform.
And the right energy. Yes. Kelly.
And until others feel how we feel, the empath and us and the connection, and now it's like the start your story, do our part, as small as it is. It's yes, getting the education out, but it's also by example. So for instance, in the break room outward is a recycling container with several garbages next to it, several garbage
day, I just go and collect all the plastic water bottles out and just put it in the right one. But in my mind, I get so angry, like, why? Why don't, it's just, do we need an incentive for people? Why can't they just do their part if it's right there? That's all I'm saying. And it's been like this for 5 years now. It's not going to change.
Yeah, that is frustrating in that sense. And in this country, it's not that this country is invented and has some amazing scientists, as some other countries have too, but along the way. But we've as a country lost our way. In my opinion, I'll just say this is because there's over $30 billion spent in Washington, D.C. by lobbyists who are lobbying on behalf of the not good things. And so that is an unfortunate situation presently. We can pray to change that energy and shift it to where people care again. Ernie, I think the last one, I think we're fine. Ernie, last question.
So what do you recommend when we go to the grocery store?
Yeah.
What should we, paper, obviously.
I don't know. I always recommend the donut aisle, but
Yeah.
Just eat them there and not.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Really, I don't have a recommendation. I think that, plastics use so much petrochemicals and really, paper bags are trees, but companies long time ago, paper companies replanted forests. Mm-hmm. So they've been doing that for a long time. And so, I always think paper is probably the better way to go. That's my personal opinion. Do not take that for anything. Anyway.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to make a comment, and that is, I think that Dave's talk gave us a lot to think about, and I think really what we need to do is to repeat what several people have said, is be good examples. And part of being a good example is to educate yourself and learn from the people that know it and can teach us on our, like, I know there's different levels of expertise. Mine is low when it comes to technical stuff like that. But learn from those people and then spread that word. It's the same as with our spiritualism. We've had concerns here that, people think spiritualists are quacks and they don't this, and even you watch TV and they make fun of them. And, we need to just keep putting ourselves out there for who we are. And we need to be proud of who we are, be proud of our spiritualism, and not let anybody shake you on it. And then when you do that, when you become really confident in yourself, you can also share this other knowledge that you're learning. And I don't mean beat people over the head with it. I mean just share it, in a kind way. They can take it or leave it, but you've planted the seed. So I just had to throw that out there. So